Bom dia a todos, sejam bem-vindos ao maior encontro de utilizadores de Blender de Portugal. É pelo segundo ano consecutivo que estamos aqui em Coimbra e este ano são 2 dias completos com apresentações com o que melhor se faz em Portugal e também no mundo. Vamos começar por ver uma pequena animação, que é a última animação que foi feita pelo Blender Institute. Vou pedir ali ao João para começar, se faz favor.
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir? Sir? Excuse me?
Oh, come on.
You have a moment, sir?
I'm kind of in the middle of something here. Yes, thank you.
I've come a long way for you, Frank. My name is Victor. Hi. And you are Frank. Oh, you are so much more than just a sheep, aren't you?
Oh, yeah? How would you know?
Look at you. You're an adventurer, Frank. Just like me. You're a lone wolf. Tell me, does one choose to be alone? No, one doesn't. One doesn't even choose to be a wolf. Or does one?
Well, Mr. Hector.
Victor.
I don't know what you're on about, but I'm just a sheep minding its own business. And I suggest you do the same.
No, Frank, wait. No, this is not the way. Just give me 1 minute of your precious time.
Precious time?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. You would have 1 more minute, wouldn't you? Okay, half. Half a minute. I knew it. I knew it. Ah, you will not regret this. The adventures you will have. All the lives you ever wanted. All you've been missing. Here, this is the best product we have in store. Variable spin speed, excellent tumble performance in one handy device. Squeaky clean.
Well, this better be good. It took me ages to tie that rope with my fucking hoofs.
No more need for hoofs. No more sheepy business. Oh, time flies.
Wait. How does this thing work? I mean, how do I make it work?
No, you don't. I just turned it on for you.
When can I go? Where can I go?
We will pick you up. Don't worry. Just stay here. In this exact place. Don't move. Just wait.
That's it? Hey! Wait! Mister! Casper! Hector, whatever!
Então, gostaram da animação? Que tal chamarmos agora aqui o responsável pelo desenvolvimento da pipeline e também gestor de produção desta própria animação? Queria chamar aqui ao palco, então, o Francesco Siddi. Já chegou. Francesco Siddi veio diretamente da Holanda para este evento e é diretor técnico do Instituto Blender. É um apaixonado por criar processos e ferramentas que auxiliem a criação de animações. Além deste projeto, ele também participou ativamente noutros projetos da Blender, não sei se também já viram, que foi o Tears of Steel e o Caminhantes. Pedi uma grande salva de palmas, então, para Francesco Siddi.
Bom dia, o meu nome é Francesco e isto é tudo o português que sei dizer. So, that being said, welcome, and you're a lot. So, who has seen Cosmos Laundromat for the first time today? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. I have a couple more questions just to get a little bit of an idea of like what we are going to talk about and how we are going to talk about it. So, who is a student here? Most of you. Are there professionals, like people who do computer graphics as a job? Okay. So mostly students, okay. Something else, are you interested in film? Like filmmaking? Are there like filmmaking students, or I know this is not really a filmmaking place, but are there people who have played with film before, who are interested in it? You all hate film? Okay, great. Games, maybe more interesting, people be making games and stuff. Okay, not a lot of people. What do you guys do? Well, you're students, I know. So you're studying. Who has been using Blender for 1 year, or like less than 1 year, like just started with Blender? Okay. First of all, does everybody knows what Blender is? Like, you heard of Blender. It's Blender PT, so Blender. Blender for more than 1 year. A couple of years of Blender stuff. Like, okay, a lot of people here. Blender for more than 5 years. Okay. Okay, Blender for more than 10 years. Okay, good. So a lot of people actually here didn't use Blender before. Is it correct? Or like I think I missed. Like I didn't see a lot of hands. So what we're gonna talk about today then is how we made this film that you've just seen, how it works, and what we do with Blender, and tell you a little bit about Blender and so on. So, as you heard from my great introduction, I am Francesco. I work at the Blender Institute. It's a small independent animation studio in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. I come from Italy, but I moved there to work because I love the weather there so much. It's like now, outside, all year. Every day, but it rains more, like not just gray outside, but yeah, no, I'm joking. So Blender Institute is a studio that makes open projects, and it started, as you can see, in 2007, based in Amsterdam. We made other short films. Maybe someone has seen a short film with a big white rabbit, or with a llama trying to cross the road, or a girl with a dragon. All those films were made by Blender Institute. And the main goal is to make these films so that we can improve the Blender 3D software. So there is a strong connection with making software and making stuff, making film, making art. Because if you don't do something practical with the software, it's never going to be good. It's never going to be really something that you can use. And being Blender an open source project, we try to do this with a similar philosophy. So the film, the things that we make, they are open as well. They are called open movies. I hope everybody here is familiar with the open source software concepts. So, I mean, probably you also know everything about Blender Institute, but I don't know. I'm just going to tell you anyway. In Blender Institute, then, we have usually a crew of 5 to 10 to 15 people, artists and developers working together to make film and to make software and to release everything out there in the public so that everyone can benefit. Sounds great, everything free. You've just seen we played the film from YouTube, so it's there for everyone to watch. But there are many other films. So as I was telling you, the big rabbit, the girl with the dragon, big robots, llamas and stuff. We talk about the llama tomorrow. So I heard that Saturday is when everybody goes home. But tomorrow, in the morning, before going home, come by here and we watch the llama short film and we talk about it, and it's going to be awesome. So that's just for tomorrow. And the Blender Cloud. So as I was saying, everything is great that we do all this open stuff, open source software, and open movies, but how does it work, right? People need to be paid. And in the past, we did films with crowdfundings. So you guys know about Indiegogo or Kickstarter. You have a cool project. You go there, make a pitch video, and then tell all your friends and family, hey, please support me. And then you get enough budget to do the film. And that's how we did most of the films in the past. So there was a public announcement, and the Blender community and anyone who actually really wanted to support us. Of course, the Blender community was very motivated because they get a lot of development in the software. They could chip in. And so then we were able to put together considerable budgets to make these open movies. But there was one problem, like this, in the other Kickstarter websites. Once you do a campaign and you collect your budget and you do your project, then it's over, especially for film, because of course you can try to put it together and start a business that lasts for longer. But making film, usually you get all the money, and then you make a little mountain, then you burn it, and then there is a movie underneath. And so then there isn't much left to use. So we had to keep doing this every time. And every time a movie was done, then you have to send the crew home. So that doesn't really work very well for quality or for improving and becoming bigger. And so we looked for a different solution, and the solution was to make a more sustainable platform. And that's why we made the Blender Cloud. So the Blender Cloud is basically a website where people join, they subscribe, and they pay a monthly fee. And they get access to a giant library of content. So who has never heard of the Blender Cloud before? OK. It's good. It's not bad. I'm going to tell you all about it. And by the end of this presentation, you will be subscribed automatically. So basically, there is this website that we made, which is subscription-based, and it costs like 10 euros per month or something like that. And when you're subscribed, you can get everything we make and everything we made. So if you've seen Cosmos, the film is there. But not just the film, like all the assets of the film. The ship is there. Victor is there. The grass field is there. Tutorials and documentation of how we did that stuff is all there. So basically, it's a way for us to share what we do in terms of like content itself, like assets that we make for the film, shaders and simulations and everything, but also workflows. So how to actually do stuff. And this is like an invaluable learning resource, because there are a lot of training websites out there that explain you how to do things, but this is done a little bit different, because you see here is not that we show how you achieve this. Is like, okay, we make a movie, and then if you want to learn how it's done, then you can find all the information there. So if you want to like really learn how things work, like how you make things work on a professional level, like we had to finish this film, so how do you make it work? It's not the ideal way, it's like the way to get it done. Then you find that. And that's really rare, because film studios tend to lock up their pipelines. It's very secret, it's a very secretive business. So being able to share this, I think makes it a very interesting product. And we are very lucky because we have a few thousand people who share our vision. They really support us, and that's how we keep the studio running. So we need a few more subscribers. So No, okay, I'm joking. I'm here to tell you a little bit how this started before, and at the same time I'm going to tell you a bit about how we made the film as well. So, to recap, the cloud is this platform that we made for sharing and learning and collaborative production, and this is pay for service versus pay for content. And it's all free software, of course, like this website thing is also online. It's not like the Adobe Creative Cloud or the Microsoft Cloud, whatever. I don't know what the Microsoft Cloud does, but nowadays cloud is a word everybody says, and it usually means you have a service and you put it behind a paywall, and that's all you do, and you don't give really people anything. And especially now with software, running software on the cloud, it basically means that if you're not connected to the internet, you cannot run your software anymore. That's really not cool. So that's not what we do. I really would like to make this clear, because this is a very important part. Like, this is why we could make our films. So I really would like to explain. And this is our path to the cloud. So it all started with Project Gooseberry. So Project Gooseberry was meant to be the beginning of this cloud business. And we made several short films before, and this was going to be our first feature film. So we wanted to make a full-length movie, 90 minutes of animation. Yeah, that's very big. And to do that, we wanted to launch the cloud. So we were looking for like 10,000 subscribers, paying 10 per month. So it means like almost 100K per month. It's not bad. But to make film is really expensive, so it's actually not really a lot. But that was our plan. So that's what we announced, and we went live with a campaign where we were really reaching out for this very ambitious goal. And this is a teaser of the film, which, I mean, let's see what time it is. Maybe we don't look at it, because also we have to switch the sound, so we don't do that. It doesn't matter. But we had a very big network of studios connected with us. So it was like a small studio in the Netherlands plus another 10, 15 small studios around the world. And we were going to work together with all these people, funded by the cloud, with on different parts of the film. Yeah? So there would be one director, this guy, and he would be caring about like the vision and how the whole film would be, how the whole film would be done, but then we would break it down in different parts, done with different styles, giving freedom to the different units to do what they wanted. And sadly, the campaign didn't work out. So otherwise, I would have come here with my private helicopter, but it didn't work out. So we didn't get all the money. We got only a part of it. But that was enough for us to get kickstarted with the pilot project. So we decided, instead of making the full thing, we wanted to make a part of it. And the first part, which is what you've just seen, which is why maybe you found it very confusing. You were like, what is happening? What is this guy? Where is he going? Why is it finished? I don't know. And that is because it's meant to go on. And for us working on it and also like sharing it with people, and also like after the movie was done, it was interesting to see, because of course it's a very big build-up, and these guys are talking in the grass, and you don't know what's going on. But that's because, then a lot of things are supposed to happen. And but that's what we ended up doing. And now I'm going to tell you about it. So this is our team in Amsterdam. So almost everybody there, because during those almost 1 year of production, people went. We had guests sometimes coming for a few months. And this is us in Amsterdam, working in the studio and hanging out and building computers and having beers at the windmill, because that's in Amsterdam, they have windmills and beer, so that's something you do there. The process is, does anyone know here a little bit how filmmaking process works, like computer graphics films, like animation films? Are you familiar with it? Has anyone seen animation films? before? Sorry, I'm just trying to get an idea. I don't want to be telling you things that you already know, you know. So the way it works, you get together a team and you start developing. So as I told you, we decided to narrow down our scope and to work on this pilot. So we needed to figure out a lot of things, like how do the character work? What happens in the story? How do you tell the story? And how do you face all the technical challenges? It's always a dual world, right? You have challenges of technical type, challenges of artistic type. You want everything to work together. So these are some examples of how we were developing the ship. The ship is called Frank. And you start with some concept art, and then you explore different styles, and then you try different things until you find what you want. And the same goes like for Victor. You see the guy in the top left? That looks more like what we went for. But at some point, it was like this androgynous Final Fantasy type of guy, and then it was also that guy. So it keeps changing. And we kept sharing that process online. So everything we were making, every week we were putting it live and seeing how people would react and sharing it with the community, and it was really cool. Let's see. This is a shot animation progression. I'm just going to talk over it. It's just a little bit of sound, but we don't want it. So computer animation. It's a big component of what we do. And you can see here, Hjalti is the animator on the right, and on the left, he was the actor who voiced Victor. And this is how you lay out the shot. So starts with some blocking. So well, first of all, you have to shoot reference because it's very hard to animate without a reference, because you don't know really what all the parts of the body are making. So you have to really explore and try. And as you've seen, like, there were different takes, and they were all stitched together by the animator to really pick the most interesting parts. And then once you have a vision of how the shot is going to work out, then you start blocking it. So you see it's all like step by step, like just the basic poses to get a feeling of how it works. And then it gets reviewed with the director. So then you decide, okay, let's give this a different timing, let's make this a little bit faster, let's make this a little bit slower. Let's find out how to go on a little bit with this slide. No, not like this. I wanted to show you the finished shot, but I cannot find out how. So I should have just let it go. Sorry about that. So the thing is, I really can't. Oh, maybe. Oh, here. Oh, look at this. So this is more reference. Let's see, I just want to skip, because you see the version here is version 18. This video goes on for 10 minutes. I don't want to, kill you. But as you can see, with every pass, with every iteration, you see here these are the final things. This is interesting. So like, let's see version 17. It becomes smooth, right? So you do more passes until you start breaking down the animation so that it's really fluid, and that everything works as intended. And after a certain number of passes, I'm not moving, nothing really, you can't really see what's different. An animator would know, because they spend the whole day looking at this, but we normal humans wouldn't know. But for them it's really important. For us it's also really important, because in the end that's what you feel. You feel they are real, you feel they are moving, you feel they are believable, so it actually pays off. So this is like the very final, the final animation pass. So you see, actually this is an OpenGL render. This is how the animators usually preview their work. So it's a very simple shading that is almost done in real time in the computer, in Blender. And this is the final pass, where you can see all the, well, here on this screen you don't see it very well, but you see the cord of his headphones, like it's all hand animated and it's all moving as expected. And there is a pocket going back and forth, and the match with some smoke sim that is not there, because this is just the animation, it's not the effects. So And this is a final recap of our Hjalti climbing out of a chair on the floor of the Blender Institute all the way to another day when he changed clothes, and then he picked another shot of the actor standing up, and then he picked himself because he was like, well, I can take out my thing much better than he does. And there you go. And this is the final shot where you see a completely different take just to get a different timing. And well, since we are here, we can also just rewatch the render version so that you can see all the final polished shading and effects. As you can see, he has very long legs. That's usually quite tricky to animate. And you see on top of this, there is also a whole simulation layer with the hair and with the smoke of the cigarette, and that is an animation progression. Animation took around 4 months with the team of 3 animators. And there was another team who was working on environments and effects. So everything happens in a set, everything happens somewhere, right? So we need to set that up and to make it look like a place where those characters could actually stand. And in our case, there were really big challenges. It really pushed us to develop Blender further and to find new workflows to deal with it. Very complex environments with hair, with grass, with wind, and interaction between them. So sometimes the characters are touching each other. You've seen there is a scene where he's putting the timer around the neck of Frank, and there is that fur squeezing. That is really hard to do. So we go from having to do little props like the cassette that you see for 3 seconds of screen that is like fully modeled with a screw and everything, to a bunch of rocks and grass strands and stuff like that, to the matchbox, which also is on the screen for like 5 seconds, to an island, which is like supposed to be 500 meters wide, and that little dot in the middle is Frank hanging himself on the tree. So it's a lot of scale, a lot of things that have to go between those steps, and it's a lot of work. So this is just a little test to study the volumes and the shapes of how the island would look like, because everything you see has to be art directed, it has to be designed. And there is a lot of back and forth with the director to see how it's going to look like in the end. At this point, I am going to show you something. First of all, you're going to see my skills at switching between computers, and then also me not being able to type, but that's it. So what you're going to see now is a 7 minutes video that showcases some of the most complicated and exciting effects shots that we did in the film. So it's a lot of research, a lot of testing, especially to get the tornado right, because we had this idea. It was very hard for quite some time to find out how this tornado would look like, because you've seen it's not just a tornado, it's like almost, it was inspired by daylight fireworks. It's a thing they do like in China, like these things that explode and have all colors all over the place, but in a vortex. And how you do that? Well, with Blender is actually quite tricky, so we had to try a lot of things. Most of this work is from Andy Goralczyk. He's an art director and environment artist at the Blender Institute. So I will play it, and I hope you enjoy it. So if we can actually dim down all the lights, it would be great. Thank you. a lot of stuff. You guys still awake? You can just nod. Okay, good. We're going to talk about rendering. So it's the last part. After all this work, of course, we've been skipping a few things, but we have a couple more topics. One is the rendering, and one is a little recap about tools and development for the film. What does it mean? What does it mean to render a film? So rendering a film like Cosmos, you know, you have your computer with the scene on it, and then you open Blender. Well, you open Blender, you have your scene, and you press F12, then you wait, and it renders. I hope someone of you has done this before. And you press it, and then there is a cube appearing if you never did anything before, because that's what Blender ships with. In our case, we had all those things that you've seen now in the viewport with the grass and everything. So to render, it wouldn't take less than 3 hours per frame. The fast frames were taking 3 hours. And the slow frames were taking 20 hours. And there are 24 frames per second. This film is 12 minutes. We had 17,000 frames to render. 3 hours, okay, an average of 6 hours each. So we would still be rendering if we had one computer, but we had more than one. We had a partnership with Cournot, which is a render service provider. They provided us with a few hundred machines to render, and we had help also from a university. They provided us with some supercomputing power for a couple of shots that were really heavy. And thanks to that, we were able to render the movie on time, but it still took us a bit more than a month to render. And to do that, we developed our own render management software. This is just to give you an idea. I'm going to use this very cool laser pointer. So you see this is the amount of time that it takes to render a shot on a different computer. So like this is an average. Well, these are like the slow render nodes that we had in our render farm. So it's like, okay, this is a relative thing, but you see this is, assume that this is 1 hour. This is 3 hours. And we had like, this was a bit faster, more modern server computer. This is more like a personal computer kind of a thing. And these were really, this is a Mac Pro, like the little cylindric thing. And these were high, very powerful servers that we had. We had a couple of them in the studio. So as you can see, like the difference was significant. Like we had these machines that could render 10 times as much as the others. And that also makes it interesting when you have to design a software that can scale and handle different types of input outputs, and it's also difficult to, like it's interesting because you have to predict how long things are going to take. Like one of my jobs was to manage this, so to know that by a certain date we would have a certain amount of frames rendered. And you cannot really miss the date, because if the movie has to be released and the frames are not there, then it's not good, right? So that's especially when you get to the end of the process and basically all the crew is done and everybody's waiting for the frame. You get like, so how are the frames going? And you're like, well, yeah, they're rendering. So we made a software for it. It's called Flamenco. It's open source and public, and we used it, and it was good. And it allowed us to basically render shots in our local render farm. So in our studio, we had a few computers that we could dedicate to rendering, but also be able to send some shots outside. And we made the seamless connection with this. So for the artists, it was very easy. They just, within Blender, they could press a button and send it to whichever farm they wanted. And a few hours later, they would get the files back. It was very challenging in some cases because we had these caches, like smoke caches and grass simulation caches, or the fur, that would make the files quite big, like 20, 50, 100 gigabytes big. And even to transfer that file, those files, it takes a while. I was trying to download something on the Wi-Fi now, and it was very hard. I cannot imagine. Well, so we also developed an asset management software, or at least it was the beginning of it. And the idea was to improve on what we were using before. We were using SVN. Some of you maybe know what it is. It's a tool for managing source code and files. You can do versions, pretty much like Dropbox, but a bit more manual and a bit more technical. And we tried to put something on top of that and connect it with Blender. So you could have your blend file with all the dependencies and group them together and being able to push them to a server and have them versioned in a smart way. And it was the beginning of this project, and the project is still ongoing, and part of it has been merged in the latest Blender. So there is a much better way to save a file and all its dependencies into one archive, and before this was not really possible. We went to Pixar and DreamWorks and Google this last summer to show the movie, because we released it in SIGGRAPH in Los Angeles in August last year. And when you're in the States, a lot of nice things happen, especially if you hang out like in the California in a big computer graphics conference. So we got invited by some friends to screen the movie in those studios. And it was really a nice opportunity to talk to the makers of very famous films that in the end they love movies as much as we do. So being able to have a presentation there and have a conversation with them about what we do and how we did it was very nice. So for us, it was a very nice wrap up of the project. That being said, I am done. So thanks a lot for your attention. And I hope we have like maybe 5 minutes for questions. And it would be nice to hear what you guys think, because you've been very quiet, which is, I'm concerned. So does anyone have questions about what you've just seen? Does this microphone work, for example? Is a question that I don't know, maybe. So, yeah. Well, as I said. You can also shout if you want. And I can repeat. You can also not shout and I repeat. Yeah. So at which resolution we render the frames? We did it at 2K. So it's 248 by 858. You've seen it's very wide format. So that was like pretty standard HD, because rendering it in 4K was not an option. Yeah. More questions? You can get that thing and then, so. No, it's okay, it's okay. You get it, so that it means you can ask the question, and then, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, exactly. But he's coming, and he's like hating me probably. So was not hard.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah?
4 exactly.
Okay.
Do you have any idea of how long, more or less, did it take to render the entire Cosmos Laundromat?
Mm-hmm.
And you talked a little bit about the equipment. Can you go into further detail about the equipment that you had
Mm-hmm.
to render the film?
Mm-hmm. Well, to render the whole film, as I was saying, I think it took us around, a couple of months, I think, on and off. Because you have to re-render many times. You make a frame, then it's wrong, then you do it again, then it's wrong, then you do it again, then it's wrong, then you do a little bit. Then it's 90% right, 10% wrong, so then you just render that part. So it takes, around that time. And in terms of machine, really we had a variety from normal personal computer i7 3 gigahertz machines with like 16 gigs of RAM to 56 thread Xeon machines with 64 gigs of RAM. So it was depending on the complexity of the shots and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay. About the particles visualization, are the artists able in Blender to visualize the aspects, for instance, of the tornado in real time, or it needs to be rendered first? What is the ability currently of Blender to show something like that, particle-wise?
Yeah, there are very big limitations. So to even see those renders that you've seen in the reel with the tornado preview, those would take, I think, an average of 5, 10, 15 seconds per frame in OpenGL. So definitely not real time. And it's just one of the limitations of Blender, and the particle system is being reworked on right now because it reached really its limits with this production. We really couldn't find better ways to handle animation and previewing and all that kind of stuff. It's very connected with how you simulate, how you store the data, and how you visualize it quickly. Like, so it's both viewport and also a data management problem. And
it's a very complex.
Yeah, it's something
area.
for the future. Yeah.
Are you expecting to continue working on following episodes of Cosmos? And if yes, any idea for when?
Yeah, we didn't, like, we made a small statement in the past about it, but we are still waiting to make more, like something more official. There are no concrete plans to work on this. What you've seen here is just the beginning, and as I was saying, maybe it was a bit confusing, especially the part when he wakes up and is this caterpillar, and you're like, what? And then it's over. And we actually had another 6 minutes of sequence there, and you can actually find it on the cloud. And we applied for funding for it, not via crowdfunding. We applied to a film fund to just see if they would support us, but it didn't work out. So we had that part, and that would be the next thing we do. And then, because that is basically worked out, we had the design of the scenes and some storyboards and something. And so it was a good foundation, so it's something we could work on, but we don't have a plan for that. And then for future episodes, it's really kind of on hold, because we are now moving on with other projects. And if we get support with the cloud, like enough support, then maybe we can think about it. But it's not on the top priority list right now.
Okay. Finally, how do you feel that the CG industry is responding to the evolution of Blender and open source? For instance, I know that some game engines are providing more free versions and supporting this kind of open source development.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys use other 3D software, or like, what's the word on the street regarding Blender, that it's, it's free and it's cheap and stuff, and it's not industry standard. The industry standard thing, I think, especially for students, has been marketed a lot by companies like Autodesk, for example. They really try to push the industry standard thing. There is no industry standard. I mean, there is industry standard, of course, but in studios, the bigger the studios, the more professional the studios are, the more they find their own standard, because internally they have to make things work, right? So Blender is great for that. And because of being open, and because it's really easy to plug in and to just use. So professionals who use Blender, even in big studios, there is plenty of them. And people really like it. People really like what we do and how we do it, and the fact that it's open. They like the films, but also just the philosophy and how things are done. And Blender has a lot of industry support, like, Open Subdiv from Pixar, and PTEX from Disney, and Lambic from Sony Pictures. So it's like, it's taken quite seriously, especially in the past years. Every time we go to SIGGRAPH, this big computer graphics conference in the States, it's you can see the reaction and how those studios, and especially the technical people, they are very happy to be connected with us. So I think it's really growing, and there are films being made with Blender, even feature films entirely made with Blender. But as I was saying, the industry is quite closed, quite secretive, so people don't really divulge much about what they use and how they do it. So, but it's good. It's looking really good for Blender.
Thank you.
Okay, so one more question, maybe. Here, I can carry the. I can. Here we go.
It's not about.
Yeah, it's working, I think. Yeah.
It's not about the movie, your presentation, but related with the Blender Foundation. Is the Blender Foundation thinking about linking Blender with the mobile devices? Ever?
Like, you mean having like Blender to run on mobile?
Or create applications or movies to see on the mobile phones or tablets or things like that. Do you know the Unity? Mm-hmm. Unity, you can create games for the mobiles for different systems, operating systems. Yeah. I think when I give classes to my students about Blender, sometimes I think they would like to see to especially the games.
If they would support us, but it didn't work out. So we had that part, and that would be the next thing we do. And then, because that is basically worked out, we had the design of the scenes and some storyboards and something. And so it was a good foundation, so it's something we could work on, but we don't have a plan for that. And then for future episodes, it's really kind of on hold, because we are now moving on with other projects. And if we get support with the cloud, like enough support, then maybe we can think about it. But it's not on the top priority list right now.
Okay. Finally, how do you feel that the CG industry is responding to the evolution of Blender and open source? For instance, I know that some game engines are providing more free versions and supporting this kind of open source development.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys use other 3D software, or like, you know, what's the word on the street regarding Blender, that it's, you know, it's free and it's cheap and stuff, and it's not industry standard. The industry standard thing, I think, especially for students, is been marketed a lot by companies like Autodesk, for example. They really try to push the industry standard thing. There is no industry standard. I mean, there is industry standard, of course, but in studios, the bigger the studios, the more professional the studios are, the more they find their own standard, because internally they have to make things work, right? So Blender is great for that. And because of being open, and because it's really easy to plug in and to just use. So professionals who use Blender, even in big studios, there is plenty of them. And people really like it. People really like what we do and how we do it, and the fact that it's open. They like the films, but also just the philosophy and how things are done. And Blender has a lot of industry support, like, you know, Open Subdiv from Pixar, and PTEX from Disney, and Lambic from Sony Pictures. So it's like, it's taken quite seriously, especially in the past years. Every time we go to SIGGRAPH, this big computer graphics conference in the States, it's you can see the reaction and how those studios, and especially the technical people, they are very happy to be connected with us. So I think it's really growing, and there are films being made with Blender, even feature films entirely made with Blender. But as I was saying, the industry is quite closed, quite secretive, so people don't really divulge much about what they use and how they do it. So, but it's good. It's looking really good for Blender.
Thank you.
Okay, so one more question, maybe. Here, I can carry the. I can. Here we go.
It's not about.
Yeah, it's working, I think. Yeah.
It's not about the movie, your presentation, but related with the Blender Foundation. Is the Blender Foundation thinking about linking Blender with the mobile devices? Ever?
Like, you mean having like Blender to run on mobile?
Or create applications or movies to see on the mobile phones or tablets or things like that. Do you know the Unity? Mm-hmm. Unity, you can create games for the mobiles for different systems, operating systems. Yeah. I think when I give classes to my students about Blender, sometimes I think they would like to see especially the games in a mobile. Yeah. Ever do Blender Foundation thinks about that, or?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Blender is meant. I don't think there are immediate plans for it. The software is there, so anyone who is willing and interested to do that is of course welcome to do it. And there was an Android port of Blender done a few years ago, but it hasn't really progressed. This is because it's really difficult, right? It's really tricky. What do you want to do? And the ultimate goal for Blender currently is to be an all-encompassing pipeline tool for making films. For games is used a lot, but it has to fit in with other technologies. And right now, the Blender Foundation is there to facilitate the development, so it doesn't really have the resources to focus on transforming Blender into a game editing tool, because there are plenty of them, and they are becoming free and open source, like Unreal, for example. it's insane what they do. So it's better to find a way to connect them. So you can do your assets, you can do your landscapes, you can do whatever in Blender, and then you move it to the actual optimized engine design for those kind of things. Okay, well, I hope this was a bit interesting for you, that it got you into the idea of what you can achieve with Blender. And I hope to see you around during the day. If you have any questions for me and you are too shy to ask them now, or if you really need your coffee break, go to the coffee break. Thank you.